Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So my name's Katie and today we're going to be talking about some recent reads. So yeah, it is yet another recent reads video. So this video is basically a March wrap up. So it's talking about all the books I read in March, which wasn't that many, but also a couple of books that at the end of February and also some that I've read in April already, because it's about the 4th or 5th of April when I'm filming this, and because I've been off I've already read a few books. So yeah, I just thought I'd catch everyone up on what I've been reading. So yeah, so the first book, I've got my little reading journal here, which I really love, it's so cute. So the first book we have to talk about is Sharp Ends by Joe Abercrombie, and this is a short story collection set in the First Law world. And I gave this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It's not my favourite First Law book, obviously I'm an absolute Age of Madness simp, so they're still my favourites, but I did really enjoy this one. I really liked, what was her name? I think Chev, who's the main character. I really liked her. She's very sort of charismatic. I feel like Joe Abercrombie is a master at writing characters, and I liked how the short stories were kind of following Chev through quite a few of them. I thought that Chev's stories were my favourites, even though like some of the other short stories were like beloved characters. I still felt like Chev's were my favourite, I don't know. But yeah, it was fun. It was Abercrombie. His humour is always like on par. His writing is really good. Enjoys characters. So yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah, I feel like I can't remember each short story individually, but Chev's ones were definitely my favourite. So anyway, and I liked how they the different short stories sort of tied into each other. I thought that was very clever. So yeah, if you are a fan of First Law, I would definitely recommend the short story collection. Then the next one is Love Bites, which is a sapphic vampire romance, which I gave 3 stars, or 3.5 stars, because like I feel like I enjoyed it, but it wasn't my favourite like romance or contemporary ever. I don't know why, it just felt a bit sort of not dry exactly, but I don't know if the humour just didn't quite work for me, or it felt like there was quite a lot, like it felt long for a romance book, or like I was kind of trawling through it. But I enjoyed the characters, and I love like any sort of vampire-y themes. So we're following Chloe. She was like divorced a few years ago and she's quite depressed, or she was depressed, and she's still sort of dealing with depression, but she's not like super depressed at the time of the book. And she meets Angela, who's this character who sort of it doesn't come out during the day, and you get the gist. And then they meet and they start having this kindling relationship, but then Chloe starts noticing like weird stuff about Angela, and then Angela's past is kind of chasing her because the person who like turned her into a vampire, it's not a spoiler because like you get both their POVs, so you know Angela's a vampire from like the first chapter. And so yeah, so they're also like being chased down by this, and yeah, there's a lot going on. I'd say if you like romance books, you probably enjoy it, but it's not my favourite ever, but it was a fun time. So yeah, I don't know, if I can't decide if I want to read the sequel really, because I don't know, I feel like there's better books I could be spending my time on. But yeah, it suddenly got really dark. I feel like you might not be able to tell because of my ring light, but it just feels so dim all of a sudden. Yeah, okay, anyway, so then next. Okay, so first we have City of Lies, which is in my bookcase back here, but I can't be bothered to get it out because it's all wedged in, so I'll just put a picture in of the cover. And I read this one for the Shelf Space Book Club, which I did with Jessie from The Bookish Mum, or Mom even. And yeah, that was really fun. I'll try and leave our live show linked where we talk about it in a lot of depth if you want to hear more of my thoughts on that. But I gave this one 4 stars as well. Yeah, 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It's very like, I feel like one of my favourite things about it was it's very like, the main character is like a poison taster for I'm not sure they call it the king, but like the chancellor or the person who's in charge. And so I loved all the elements of like the poison and the kind of medicine through poison, and like at the start of each chapter you get a little snippet about each like different poisons, and it like tells you this kind of effects, like the symptoms you get if you're poisoned with it, like some of the properties of the plant, which I just really love those little details. And I sort of loved all the sort of poisony things like waving throughout. And I also felt like the kind of the mystery and the plot twists were like done really well. Like I feel like this book this, and I'm usually a character reader, but for me the strength of this book was the plot, and that was what, like, the political intrigue and stuff, that was what kept me engaged, because the characters, I would say they're likeable, but they weren't like my favourite characters ever in a fantasy. And I did find I would actually really recommend the audiobook for this book, because the two, so you're following the narration of two different two siblings. I can't remember their names. One definitely begins with a J and one begins with a K, and the girl is the K. Karina, maybe. I feel like I want to say Jovan for the boy's name, but I don't know if I'm just getting that confused with all the other Jovan. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Jovan actually, and Kalina. Jovan and Kalina, that's it. And they are both first person. And I feel like when I was reading it physically, because I read the first half sort of physically, and then I was running a bit short on time before the live show, so I switched to the audiobook. And when I was reading it physically, it was really hard to tell the difference between who was narrating the chapter, because I feel like they're in very similar circumstances, and I don't feel like they were different enough characters to sort of, from just reading the text, to like know who was who, because like I said, it's not super character focused. It's almost like the characters are just there to kind of narrate the story. So then it was, but when you switch the audiobook, it's two different narrators, one male, one female, and then it was super easy to tell. And I feel like that kind of added more to the story and always added more characterization, like separating them. So yeah, so I'd recommend the audiobook. And yeah, I enjoyed it, but there was just like one or two things which I didn't love. Like the kind of, it felt like we didn't get a lot of time sort of just with the characters, and I feel like they had a lot of potential as characters, but it was also a lot darker than I was expecting. For some reason I was expecting like a more kind of fun, chaotic fantasy, but actually it's quite dark. So yeah, I'm definitely going to read the sequel. I'm looking forward to that, but yeah, just a few things to be aware of. Okay, then after that I read Dark Rise, by C.S. Pasca, I think, which I gave 3.5 stars to. So I feel like this was one, I was reading it and I was like, I enjoyed the story, the characters are okay, but it just takes itself way too seriously. Like, I feel like it would have been so much funner if it had just been like a little bit more cheesy. I don't know. Yeah, that was my main takeaway. Just needed to, because I feel like YA sometimes, if it embraces its like inherent cheesiness and like doesn't take itself too seriously, I really love, like Little Thieves. I feel like that was a book that did that really well. But yeah, so anyway, so we're following a few different characters. So Will, who, like, it's been a while, well, it's not been that long, it's like been a month since I read it, but kind of set Victorian England, but like a slightly magical version. And Will, somehow he ends up on this ship. I don't know if he's been captured or he's on the ship and then he's rescuing someone who's been captured, something along those lines. And he basically discovers he has these like powers, like he can use this kind of sword thing which is like really destructive. And his mother was like killed a few years ago in like mysterious circumstances, and there's this like shady figure called Simon who is like, yeah, like that kind of dark, evil, although he's like outwardly charming, but like it's kind of like the bad guy type thing, who's like working against Will. And then Will teams up with this other girl whose name I can't remember, it's like Violet or something along those lines, and she is like running away from her family, and they kind of team up together and they go and they find these like guardians or something. Anyway, so there's like various magical adventures and a kind of historical setting, and sort of an interesting like take on like prophecies and chosen ones. I thought it was quite cool. I liked, there is like some romance, or romance kind of. I didn't really like the like main romance, although like towards the end a different sort of romance is kind of hinted at, which I'm hoping for, because I feel like when that was teased earlier in the book I was like ready for that. But I liked how Will and Violet, her name might not be Violet actually, but whatever her name was, they're kind of two main characters, and they're not like romantic at all, so I just really like that kind of central like male-female friendship. I don't know, I really like that sometimes in books. So yeah, I enjoyed that. Yeah, like I said, it was maybe slightly too long and also not cheesy enough. I know that's a really weird criticism, but it felt like, yeah, if you read it, just let me know if you think like it was took itself too seriously, because I feel like it was just a book that was perfect for just a bit of humour, but it just was like really like trying to be super dark, but it wasn't. Oh, anyway, it's hard to explain. Okay, then next I read the first two Cradle books. So the first one is Unsouled and the second one is Soulsmith. So basically we're following this character called Lyndon, who is like unsouled. So in the world everyone has like a kind of, I don't know if there's like 4 or 5 different sort of magics, but they like follow a path, which is like a type of magic. And the magic they have in their like core soul, but Lyndon is like doesn't have any power, so he's like unsouled, and because of that he's sort of ostracized by his like society. But he's also very sort of ingenious and like has worked out ways to like compensate for this, and like he's good at like scripting or something, like writing anyway. And then he somehow ends up, there's this weird, there's this big thing that happens, which I won't say because I feel like it's quite a big part of the book, but he ends up going off to this like temple monastery thing, and like trying to get little what are they called, I can't remember, like magical artifacts to try and help himself like power up basically. And yeah, so I gave both of them 4 stars, although maybe I would give Soulsmith 3.75 stars, we'll see. I think it depends on how good Black Flame is, because I've heard really good things about it, so I feel like if that's really good I might drop Soulsmith down slightly, but I enjoyed Soulsmith, so maybe it's worth 4 stars, I don't know, anyway. But yeah, so Unsouled anyway, the first one, first of all. I love Lyndon, he's such a cute character. Like as soon as we meet him and he's like this, like, he's quite young, like the first chapter or something he's like 8 or something, and he's so cute. But the most of the book he's like older, like 16 or 17, but like the first kind of prologue chapter when he like discovers he's unsouled, and also it's like Encanto and Mirabelle. But yeah, so anyway, so really like Lyndon as a character. In the first book it's mainly him, I would say, is like the main character. There's a few other characters, and later on he meets this other character called Yerin, who is kind of main in book 2. I really like her as well, she's great. It's just a really fun, like, it just feels like you're sort of watching an episode of a TV show or something, or like even like playing a sort of like game. I don't really play games like role play games or whatever, but it sort of feels like that slightly in a way. Just the sort of action sequences and like the things they like go on little quests and stuff, I don't know, it just kind of feels like that. And I would say, like, I heard someone compare the writing to Brandon Sanderson, and I would kind of agree with that. Like, it's not super like flowery prose or anything, it's just very easy to read, which I really enjoy. And the books are quite short as well, and I like that. I feel like they're a good length, because sometimes with fantasy books that are short I always feel like you didn't get enough, but with these ones it feels like you don't feel like you needed 200 extra pages. Like it fits really well in its length, if that makes sense. Like you feel very satisfied that you've got a lot, but also that it hasn't dragged on for a long time. So I feel like that's quite a skill. So yeah, I enjoyed that, and I love just like finding out extra bits about the world. And like I like the sort of magic system. There's like different, like the powers sort of level up, which is cool. It's almost a bit like Pokemon evolution, I don't know. Yeah, and then in book 2, Lyndon and Yerin are sort of off in this like magical forest. I'm sorry if you read the books, I'm probably absolutely butchering what happened, but that's sort of how I saw it. And they're going to like these ancient ruins, which I sort of love that kind of setting. And then there's a lot of stuff that happens, but the main takeaway from me from the book is there's this other character who shows up called Ethan, who's like very sort of charming and like exactly the kind of character like archetype that I like. So I liked him a lot, so I'm looking forward to seeing more of him in future books. And he's kind of that character who like knows a lot, and yeah, who seems like he has a lot of secrets, so I'm looking forward to that. I would definitely recommend the series if you're looking for something kind of fun. And the first book, like, I'm sure I got the first 2 books for free, like the first 3 books you could get for free, but I'd already got book 3 because it was like 2 for 1 on Audible, so I already had that one. But then the first 2 I hadn't got on audio yet, so I just got them free on my Kindle. So that was good. I think they're all free on Kindle Unlimited, but I don't have that at the moment. But yeah, so then we're getting through them. Okay, so then after that I read Shadow's Return, White Road, and actually I've only got 1 hour left of the audiobook, so I'll talk about it now. Casket of Souls, which are books 4, 5 and 6 of the Nightrunner series by Lynn Fwelling, which I love this series so much. It's like one of my favourite fantasy series now, and I can't believe I also only 1 book left. But yeah, Stardust and Alec like have special places in my heart now, and I love all the side characters. And just, yeah, it's just so much fun, and like I love that it's like, yeah, it's so ahead of its time as well. So basically book 4, Shadow's Return, I enjoyed, I think I don't know if I saw a review or something that hadn't liked this one, but I actually really enjoyed it. I gave them all like 4.5 stars. So yeah, so Sergal and Alec kind of get separated for quite a lot of the book, but like the way that they're separated, essentially they're like in the same place, but they don't know they're in the same place, and like I love that kind of setting. Them both trying to get free, but like and find the other, and like all the kind of intrigue of what's going on, I really liked. And then there's also this little character called Sabron, who's like this little child demon thing. I don't really know how to explain him if you haven't read the books, but he was the cutest bean ever, or is the cutest bean ever. Yeah, and I love how, and then so in like book 5, the White Road, Alec and Sergal are kind of like almost taking on like a fatherly role to Sabron, and I love seeing that like dynamic. And Sabron like has such cute moments. Like there's this one scene where like he just won't keep his shoes on and he just like keeps taking them off, and it's so cute and so funny. But yeah, so I really like that dynamic, and I just like all the politics and the like sort of fae, and it just feels very like classic fantasy, but you also have like the main 2 characters are in a queer relationship, and it's a really nice relationship as well. It's not like drama filled or anything, it's just very supportive, and at this point they're sort of like an old married couple. So yeah, it's just really nice to see, and like a very queer non-world, and all the other characters are great. The female characters are already good. Yeah, I love Thero, one of the other characters. I love him, he's so funny. Really recommend the series, basically. If you want, I feel like I'm trying to think of videos where I've been selling the series, because actually like these are the later books, but like the first book is sort of different, because these later books I would say are more like a bit more sort of magical, whereas the first book is just sort of them sort of night running, which is like they're like spies, and there's lots of political intrigue in the city. But then book 6, Casket of Souls, sort of goes back to that. So then I really enjoyed that about book 6. They're like back to the sort of political intrigue and like night running and like all that kind of skullduggery. And there's various plots in the kingdom that they're trying to like work out what's happening, and there's this strange sickness going on where people keep like just mysteriously dying in their sleep. Which is, and I haven't quite got to the conclusion of it yet, but it almost sounds like it's kind of like a vampire-y type thing going on, like someone's sucking the souls out of them, which is probably why it's called Casket of Souls. But yeah, no, I just really love the series. I love the characters. I feel like I've already said this already, but just read it. The first one's called Look in the Shadows. You won't regret it. Oh, yeah, okay. And then, okay, this is probably the best book I read in this video. So, River of Silver by S.A. Chakraborty, which is a short story collection of David Bad stories. So I love the David Bad trilogy. And I was very excited for this short story collection, and I loved it so much. It just reminded me of how much I love the world, and how much I love the characters, and how much I love like the writing. So yeah, so I guess I won't talk about every single short story, but I will say, so like the first story is like Menaiza, who if you know me, you know I love her, even though she's like the main villain of the series. I love her, and like seeing her backstory a little bit, it's just like like a tragic evil female MILF. Yeah, anyway, so I loved her story. I loved Hatset's story, who is Alizade and Zainab's mother. I really like her in the book. She's not a major character at all, but she's, I don't know, she's just exactly the kind of like mothery character that I like. Then also, oh, I really I'm like begging S.A. Chakraborty for a full-length Rustam and Durya like prequel spin-off thing, because it was such a little tease of their relationship and it was just so good. That was maybe, other than the Medoran and Jamshid stories, probably my favourite like short story in the book. Oh, it was so good. Oh, I just need more of their like dynamic and everything. Yeah, and then Medoran and Jamshid, I love all their little short stories. I feel like I'd read quite a few of them before because they used to be on her website. I love them, especially their like last chapter. Oh, some of the lines, I was like texting or messaging Rue, like absolutely screaming these lines. There's just so many good ones. Oh, and then I also really loved Nari's last chapter, which was sort of almost a bit of an epilogue to the series. And yeah, Alizade, I love him as well. And then the other, my other like favourite chapter was the sort of another sort of epilogue to the series with Dara and Zainab and Akiza, and I'm telling you, I need another book all about them, just their adventure that they go on. I just need it, and that little like sapphic tease as well. Oh, yeah, I need it so badly. Yeah, I would literally read anything in this world, although I think S.A. Chakraborty's next series is like a MILF pirate book, which sounds amazing. So yeah, very much looking forward to that, but I don't think it's connected to David Bad. But yeah, I would read anything in that world. Oh, I love it so much. Okay, anyway, enough gushing. So if you're a fan of David Bad, definitely recommend reading River of Silver. Okay, then next I read a couple of books in the Medoran Chronicles series. So this is I really enjoy this series. It's a YA series, and I feel like it's just that classic, like everything I love about YA. I feel like I have some older videos where I talk about like my favourite sort of classic feeling YA books. I might do an updated version, but like the Cindy Williams Chimer books, the Graceling books, there's other books like it, like Finnegan of the Rock, those kind of YA books. I feel like this sort of feels a bit like that, and that's just the kind of YA that I really love. And I feel like it's the kind of ones which are almost like, they're quite high fantasy, but they're like also, yeah, I don't know how to explain it, there's just a vibe. So yeah, so I read Gravale, which is book 4, and We Three Heroes, which is like book 4.5, I think, which is like, yeah, it's kind of 3 short stories with 3 of the like main side characters, basically, because the main books all only follow Alex, who's like the main character. So yeah, so Gravale I enjoyed. I feel like a lot of it was sort of setting chess pieces into place for the final book, because there was a lot of sort of like trying to get people on side and trying to, yeah, do this and do that. But I enjoyed it because like I really like the character dynamics. I really like Knights, who's one of the characters, and his dynamic with Alex, kind of like a mentor-mentee dynamic. I also, the ending of this book was brutal. I feel like actually these books, because the ending of book 2 is pretty brutal as well, although I think this one was worse. So yeah, it's kind of quite a way to set up a finale, but yeah. And then We Three Heroes I really enjoyed. So it's like Alex's 3 main friends, Dix, Jordan and Bear. I like Dix, but also Jordan and Bear are like this pair of himbos, and they're just great. So yeah, so I really like seeing their sort of POVs and their sort of inner thoughts and things. And yeah, I feel like that's all I really have to say about that one. If you read the series, or if you enjoy the series, I would definitely recommend reading We Three Heroes, because like it's good insight into the other characters. And I always like in books when, like, especially if a character's mainly written from one POV, when you get another POV, it's really interesting. Like the Fitz and the Fool books do this, because most of the Fitz trilogies are just Fitz narration, and then in Fitz and the Fool you get Fitz and another character narrating. I won't say who. but and it's really interesting like seeing Fitz through someone else's eyes. So like in these books it's really interesting seeing Alex through her friend's eyes, and also seeing the like other friends through like other eyes. I don't know. Yeah, so anyway, and I just love the friendships so much. They're such great friendships. Like they're like real friendships. I know sometimes in books I feel like friends, especially actually YA contemporary books, are an absolute so guilty of this, but the friendships are always like so toxic and like, why are you friends with this person? But in this series they're actually like good friends and like supportive, and they care about each other, and it's just really sweet. So yeah, I really like it. Yeah. Okay, and then after that we have The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah, and I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 or maybe 4.25 stars. Yeah, the writing in this one is stunning. Like, it's so engaging. It was like, I was finding it quite hard to read in like the evenings when I was revising, but this book just like, it was so easy to read, but like in a really beautiful way. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that writing. I really like the sort of more storytelling elements to it, because like, kind of woven throughout are different sort of short stories. And one of the characters, who I'll talk about in a minute because I love him, is sort of, he like loves stories and sort of almost wants to be a storyteller. And yeah, so the main character is Lily, she's great as well. But the main character that I loved was Mason, who was this absolute disaster of a prince. He's so like pathetic. But I love him so much. He reminds me in a way of also like very sort of self-depreciating and not really believing in themselves, but also so lovable, and you just want to give them a really big hug. But like, he's also kind of incompetent and he's just, oh, I just love him. And then also Lily, who is the midnight merchant. So she basically is kind of not really a thief, but like she gets sort of djinn artifacts from the desert, and she comes and sells them because she has this secret like compass that can point her to like artifacts. So that's how she sort of, so she's like makes her money. So she's a little bit shady, and she has this like djinn bodyguard called Kidia. I might be saying that wrong, sorry if I am. But I love their dynamic. I initially thought it was maybe going to be like some kind of romance between them, but it's not at all. But I actually way preferred that, because I just love the sort of, it's not quite a like mentor-mentee dynamic, but it's like Kadir is like almost like her like protector and like a older kind of role model in a way. I don't know, their dynamic was probably one of my favourite things in the book. I really loved it. It was almost kind of sibling-like, I would say, but like almost like a cross between parent and sibling. I don't know. I just really loved their whole dynamic, and they're sort of Kadir and like really like teasing him because he's like a bit grumpy and stoic sometimes. But yeah, so I really like their dynamic. And then basically what happens is Luli sort of saves the life of the prince, and she gets taken to like the emperor, and he says, I want you to go and find this like super famous relic for me in the desert, with the crown prince. And so Luli agrees to this. Well, she doesn't have a choice, so they go off into the desert, and like various adventures happen, but the prince isn't quite who he seems, because yeah, anyway, there's a lot of like plotting going on, and anyway, so yeah, it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of sort of kind of intrigue and like just magical desert adventure, which I just really enjoyed, and I really like the characters. So there's also a character called Aisha, she's one of these like 40 thieves who like hunt and kill djinn. And her character is probably my least favourite up until a certain point in the book, when like least favourite POV character. There was other characters I did not like, but they weren't like POV characters. But the only 3 POVs you get is like Mason, Luli and Aisha. But then at a certain point in the book, something happens to Aisha, and then that just made me like really interested in her character and her story, and I'm really excited to see what like her story goes in the later books, because it's kind of one of my favourite like things anyway. So yeah, so I enjoyed that one, definitely recommend. Also, if you like Days of Bad, I feel like you really like the series. It's very sort of similar vibes. It's a slightly different story, but like just the kind of the writing, I feel like it's quite similar. Like the sort of like descriptive, sort of atmospheric type thing, and also the sort of desert fantasy and like djinn and stuff is similar. And I feel like there are, I don't want to compare stories, but there are quite a few similarities, I would say, between Lily and Nari. Okay, and then after that I read I Kissed Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston. So this book was really interesting because when I started it, I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, because I loved her other two books. But as the book went on, my love for it like grew and grew and grew, and like by the end it's almost like my favourite of her books now. So yeah, so that's kind of weird. We're basically following, and this one is YA, whereas her other books are adult romance. And this one, it felt like you were watching like a CW show or something. I don't know. It really put me in the mood to like watch a teen drama. What happens is there's this character called Shara Wheeler, who is like the super popular girl at school, but she's not like the mean bitchy popular. She's like the kind of nice popular, I don't know. So they go to this school called Willowgrove, which is like a Christian academy or something. It's like a Christian school. I can't even remember what they're called. So she's like very much the sort of golden child of the school, but Shara has gone missing. And basically Chloe, these are the two characters, one called Rory and one called Smith. Smith is Chloe's boyfriend. They've all been like kissed by Shara in the past few days or something. So they all get these letters from Shara, like clues to like find out where she's gone and like why she's gone away. And so it's sort of a bit like, you know, like the kind of, not exactly like Pretty Little Lies, but like that kind of thing. Where they're like chasing around after this girl who's like engineered her own, like Gone Girl in a way. She's just gone off to wherever she's gone, and they have to try and work out what's happened to her. And as they sort of do this, Chloe, Rory and Smith sort of become friends, whereas before they were very different people, and like secrets about their sort of pasts and like their relationship with Shara and their relationships with each other, and it all comes to light. And like Chloe realizes, like, because she's moved from LA, she's like very openly bisexual, but now she's moved to this conservative like Alabama, oh no, I always say Alabama, but it's Alabama town, and she doesn't think that's affecting her, but she kind of realizes that it is. I really love how like basically all the characters in the book are queer, and it just shows the like difference of people who are queer. Like you don't just get the sort of typical, because I feel like Chloe and her friends are sort of that like typical queer friendship group, but then there's actually a lot of other characters in the school who don't always appear maybe outwardly queer, but they all have very valid experiences. And I just really liked that, and that whole thing of like that whole range. And especially as well, I liked all the kind of themes of like religious trauma in a way. I mean, I don't really have any experience with it, because I mean I went to just a normal school, but I feel like you would feel that, especially in like a red state and in like a very Christian school. So yeah, that was really interesting, seeing that sort of expectation of how someone is meant to be, and like letting that pressure get to you. And Shara was a very interesting character. At first I didn't really like her, but then I feel like she actually became the sort of character that she is. I actually really like that kind of character, who's sort of a bit evil for the sake of it. And some of the scenes between Shara and Chloe were so funny, because they kind of have this like rivalry, and it's very like, I love the sort of academic rivals type trope. So yeah, so I really enjoyed it. I feel like I could talk a lot about it actually. There's a lot of sort of themes and stuff which I really enjoyed, and like that feeling of like belonging and like friendships, and the kind of experience of like being a teenager and being really unsure about like yourself and what you're gonna do with yourself. And I don't know, I just feel like it was really good. And especially I think if you are a teenager, I think it would be really meaningful. And like the acknowledgements nearly made me cry. Like actually, I don't know if I was just really emotional because it was like premenstrual or something, but there's so many moments for like making me nearly tear up. And like yeah, like the whole thing with Shara and like the kind of pressure to be like perfect. I just really like that whole story as well. And also there's a song called Little Miss Perfect, I think by Jiraiya Kwame or something, which I really like that song, but I feel like it fits Shara's character so well. So if you read the book, or if you're interested, definitely listen to that song because I love it. It also really fits Amity from the Owl House. Yeah, anyway, that was kind of a side tangent, but yeah, so I would recommend that one definitely. I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, definitely give it a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already. And let me know in the comments a book you've read recently, or if you've read any of these books and your sort of thoughts on them. I don't think I gave a rating actually for Shara Wheeler, which I gave 4.5 stars. There was only one thing which really annoyed me about the book, and that was sorry, I've gone off now, but the amount of times the words Shara Wheeler were written out. Like, could you not just call her Shara? Like, if you like felt like the author thought she'd chosen a really cool name, which is kind of a cool name, but the amount it was used in full was ridiculous. Like, none of the other characters were called by their full names all the time, and it just got so annoying. It was like every other sentence. So yeah, that was my only kind of criticism of that one, but otherwise I really enjoyed it. So yeah, in the comments let me know a book you've read recently and enjoyed or hated, and I would love to know. And hope you're all having a really great day, and I'll see you next time.